Chapter 8 City Goods for Country Customers. During the colonial years, an American farmer made for himself almost everything he needed. He built his own house with the help of a few neighbors. He made his own furniture. His wife and daughter spun the thread, wove the cloth, and then made the family's clothes. The pots, pans, and metal tools that he could not make for himself, he would buy from a peddler. But he bought very few things. There were not many ready-made things for him to buy. Then, in the years before the Civil War, American know-how built on ideas from Europe's Industrial Revolution to develop a new kind of manufacturing. They began producing lots of new things in vast new quantities. The new American system of manufacture, which Eli Whitney and Samuel Colt had organized to make guns and revolvers, began to turn out clocks, locks, and countless other items, both better and cheaper. Now farmers could afford to buy them. But when a farmer wanted any of these things, he had to go to the nearest village and visit the general store. Children loved the place because it was where you could buy candy and toys. Since the storekeeper kept a good fire in his stove, the store was where you could stay warm in winter. Year-round, it was where you could meet friends and exchange ideas. But it was no place for bargains. The country storekeeper, who bought only a little bit of everything, could not command the best wholesale prices from the big city manufacturers. The storekeeper had to pay to have each item hauled by wagon over bumpy backwoods roads. Things were often dusty and out of date before he could sell them. Montgomery Ward was an energetic young salesman. His territory covered the West. He sold goods to the owners of general stores. Soon after the Civil War, he began to think of a new plan. He had done all sorts of things, from working in a barrel factory and in a brickyard to selling dry goods. Often in his travels, he had heard farmers complain about the small choice of goods and high prices. Young Ward's idea was to sell goods in an entirely new way. Instead of the old general store that stocked only a few of each item, Ward imagined a mail-order store. The storekeeper would stay in the big city where it was easier to collect a large stock of all sorts of goods. He would send to farmers lists of his goods with descriptions and pictures. The farmer would not need to come to the store because the store, in the form of a catalog, a magazine, would go to the farmer. And the farmer would order by mail. He would pick out whatever he wanted from the catalog. Then the storekeeper would mail the farmer his goods. If this new scheme worked, the storekeeper would be selling not only to the few customers in one particular village, he could sell to farmers all over America, to anyone within reach of a mailbox. The possible customers of this new kind of store would not just be a few hundred, they might be millions. And then Ward could buy his goods from the manufacturer, the person that made it, by the hundreds and thousands. The manufacturer could afford to give him a lower price. For the customer, too, there were advantages. He had a much wider selection of goods. He had paid a lower price since the mail-order storekeeper, with so many more customers, could take a smaller profit on each item, and yet would make more money in the long run. Young Montgomery Ward had lost nearly all of his savings in the Chicago fire of 1871. But in the very next year, he managed to scrape together enough to make a start with his new idea. He put in $1,600, and a partner added $800. They rented a small room over a stable and started modestly. Their single-price sheet listed the items for sale and told how to order them. Within 2 years, Ward was that means making, a 72-page catalog with illustrations. By 1884, the catalog numbered 240 pages, listed nearly 10,000 items. Within another 30 years, the catalog was over 1,000 pages long and included every conceivable object for animals and people. One way Ward rounded up customers was to get himself appointed the official supplier for the Grange. This was the name for a large farmers' club, the Patrons of Husbandry, founded just after the Civil War. By 1875, its members numbered 750,000 people, and all of them were likely customers. Ward offered Grange members, these farmers, a special discount. He stocked the official Granger hat, and he printed recommendations from Grange officers in his catalog. This encouraged other farmers to trust Ward. Trust was the most important thing for a mail-order store. If you bought in a general store, You were buying from a storekeeper you knew. You could see the goods and handle them to satisfy yourself. But when you bought from a mail order store, you had to trust somebody you had never seen before. You had to believe that the storekeeper would really send you the exact thing described in the catalog. Ward was a spectacular success. The first secret of his success was not a secret at all, but simply to be honest, to give good value and always let the customer be the judge. On everything he sold, Ward gave an ironclad guarantee. It said, "Satisfaction or your money back." If customers did not like the goods when they arrived, they could always return them. If something arrived damaged, they could send it back to Ward's and Ward's would replace it. The company paid the postage both ways. Of course, there had to be trust on the company's side, too. The company had to be willing to cash the customer's checks, to believe his complaints, and to replace damaged goods without a lot of investigating. Ward was willing to do this and to take the risks. The catalog showed pictures of Ward himself, of other executives, and of the men in charge of the different departments. This was to convince customers that they were dealing with real people. Some customers wrote in to say how pleased they were to deal with such fine-looking young men. Some even named babies after Ward and said he would be an inspiration to their children. Ward made sure his staff answered correspondence letters promptly, even if the writer was not ordering goods but only asking advice. One customer asked how to find a baby to adopt. Others tried to sell Ward their second-hand furniture or their livestock. Parents asked help in finding boys who had run away from home. They wanted to know how to handle disobedient children. Some wrote him simply because they were lonely and had nobody else to write to. Just as the colonial tobacco planter might ask his London agent to send him whatever he needed, now the lonely farmer asked Ward. One customer wrote, "Please send me a good wife. She must be a good housekeeper and able to do all household duty. She must be 5 feet 6 inches in height, weight 150 pounds, black hair and brown eyes, either fair or dark. I am 45 years old, 6 foot, am considered a good-looking man. I have black hair and blue eyes. I own quite a lot of stock and land. I am tired of living a bachelor life and wish to lead a better life and more favorable. Please write me and let me know what you can do for me." Ward answered that it was not a good idea to select a wife by mail. "After you get the wife and you find that she needs some wearing apparel or household goods," Ward's added, "we feel sure we could serve both you and her to good advantage." Some felt that Ward's would be disappointed at not hearing from them. One person wrote, "I suppose you wonder why we haven't ordered anything from you since the fall. Well, the cow kicked my arm and broke it, and besides, my wife was sick, and there was the doctor bill. But now, thank God, that is paid, and we are all well again, and we have a fine new baby boy, and please send plush bonnet number 29D 8077. This friendly customer received a friendly reply. Ward said they were sorry about his arm, glad that his wife was better, and sent congratulations on the son with hopes he would grow up to be a fine man. They acknowledged the order for the bonnet, and then, finally, they asked whether the customer had noticed that there was an anti-cow kicker for sale in the catalog. It's not surprising that the mail-order store was a roaring success. Of course, in an age of go-getters, Ward was not the only man who tried his hand at building a mail-order store. One of the cleverest of these others was a young railroad station agent, Richard Sears. When a stray package of watches arrived at his station in North Redwood, Minnesota, the Chicago Watch Company offered to sell them to Sears at $12 apiece. Sears bought the watches, then sold them by mail to other agents along the line for $14 apiece. Sears was in business. By selling watches to other station agents, Sears made $5,000 in 6 months, gave up his railroad job, and moved to Chicago and began selling other jewelry by mail. He found a partner in Alva Curtis Roebuck, a watchmaker, who ran a print shop where they could turn out their catalogs. Sears was a clever man and a near genius at selling by mail. One of his schemes was a club plan for selling watches. He persuaded men to form a watch club of 38 members. Every week, each member would pay the club $1. And every week when the members drew lots, one of them would win a watch. At the end of 38 weeks, every club member had a watch, and they had bought all 38 watches from Sears. Of course, Sears could not have succeeded for long in the mail-order business unless he, like Ward, had been honest. He too gave good value for money, and he let customers return any goods they did not like. But Sears was not afraid of a good joke. He knew that lonely farm families were glad to be entertained. In a rural weekly newspaper in 1889, he made an astonishing offer. He drew a picture, the offer with a drawing of a sofa and 2 chairs, all of fine, lustrous metal frames, beautifully finished and decorated, and upholstered in the finest manner with beautiful plush. Sears offered to ship all this furniture, as an advertisement only, and for a limited time only, for the ridiculously low price of 95 cents. The customers who sent in their money really were astonished. They received a set of dolls' furniture, made exactly according to the description. They had not noticed in the first line of the advertisement in tiny print the word miniature. There were lots of stories about how clever Sears was. One of his advertisements offered a sewing machine for $1. When the customer sent in his dollar, he promptly received by return mail a needle and thread. But Sears used such stunts only to attract attention to them because, it made people laugh. Like Ward, Sears actually built his business on trust and on the personal touch. After the typewriter first came into general use, about 1900, some farmers still preferred to get a letter written by hand. Sears still went to the trouble of hiring people to write out handwritten letters for the company. Then farmers would not have their feelings hurt by receiving a letter that was machine-made. Sears knew that his catalog was both his shop window and his sales representative, and he invented schemes for getting his catalogs around. He would send them in batches of 24 to people who had agreed to distribute them. But how could he be sure that the distributors would give their catalogs to the people most likely to be good customers? Sears kept a record of purchases by the new customers to whom each distributor had given his catalog. The distributor then received a prize in proportion to the amount of money spent by his new customers. When, for example, total orders from his new customers amounted to $100, Sears rewarded the distributor a bicycle, a sewing machine, or a stove. Sears was constantly improving his catalog. He developed a new quick-drying ink, new systems of color printing, and thinner paper that would take color but was cheaper to mail. He found, for example, that 4 pages of advertisements in color would sell as much of the same goods as 12 pages in black and white. His improvements were widely copied by other advertisers and by publishers of newspapers and magazines. As Sears' catalog grew bigger and bigger, it also reached more and more customers. He sent out 2 big catalogs a year, one in the spring and one in the fall. By 1904, each of these had a circulation of over 1 million. By the 1920s, the figure was 7 million, and it kept on rising. As the mail order catalog reached more and more people on remote farms, it became more and more important in their daily lives. While the farmer kept his Bible in the living room, he kept his Sears or Ward catalog in the kitchen. That was where he really lived. There were all sorts of stories about how much faith people put in this big book. One little boy's Sunday school teacher asked him where the 10 Commandments came from. He said he supposed they came from Sears. Just as Puritan boys and girls in colonial times had studied the New England Primer for its stories about God and the devil, now Americans on farms studied the Sears catalog. In country schoolhouses where there were few textbooks, teachers made good use of the catalog. They used it to teach reading and spelling. For arithmetic, pupils filled out orders and added up items, and they learned geography from the catalog's postal zone maps. In a school that had no encyclopedia, pupils used a Ward or Sears catalog. It had a good index. It was illustrated, and it told you what things were good for, what they were made of, how long they would last, and even what they would cost. Mothers gave the catalogs to children to keep them occupied. When a new catalog arrived, parents often gave the old one to the girls, who then cut it up for paper dolls. Nothing did more than the new mail order stores to change life on the farm, and to make life in America something new. Before the 20th century, most Americans still lived on the farm. Now that the American farmer could order from Ward's or Sears, his life became increasingly different from that of a European peasant. His view of the good things in the world was no longer confined to the shelves of the little village store. The up-to-date catalogs brought news of all kinds of new machines, new gadgets, and new fashions. Now American farmers could buy big city goods at prices they could afford and from someone they could trust.